3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, then now we're up. So this is Rodea the Sky Soldier. It's had a very interesting development, and when it finally did come out, it's come out to be quite an interesting run as well, except for this first about minute or so, which is just a tutorial explaining the controls, which I should probably explain as well since they are a bit unconventional. The game is played entirely with the Wii remote and the pointer, so you can see how I'm shaking this along the screen now. This is just the pointer. Use this to select various areas around the map, and then you press the B button to fly towards it and the A button to do boost attack, but we don't actually get that at the moment, which is why I'm flying slowly. That orange line is because if you flick you're supposed to flick it in arcs while you're flying, and that just makes it a little bit quicker as well. But now we can boost attack, and that's it for the controls. You can lock on as well with pressing minus, and I do that on occasion to change the camera, since the camera is one of the downsides to the very simplistic controls, as in it's done by just moving it to the side of the screen, so it's very slow and not very good. But now we're into the main bit of the run. It's very fast paced. You won't have much downtime in this run, to be honest, but it's a lot of fun. So the premise of the game is basically you've got this sky kingdom, and once every 1,000 years it's connected to the world below, and they send in their robot to try and invade. It's not a very detailed plot, it's not a very great plot either, which is a good thing because the gameplay is all that matters. Probably best way to describe it, the mix between Sonic, Nights in the Dreams, and the boss fights are a bit like Shadow of the Colossus. So hopefully that makes you all interested for this. So that's the end of chapter 1. It's a very quick chapter. Going into chapter 2, I'll explain one of the main speedrun tricks in the game, which is edge boosting. That was actually a really good time for chapter 1. So edge boosting works by exploiting the way Rodea's boost attack actually works and how the game tries to slow you down. I'll show it off first because I do 2 in this level. It breaks this level wide apart actually, and I'll explain it after. So okay, so that's one example. I'll show the other type and then I'll explain how both of them work. That second one's really awkward, so I'm glad I got both first time there. So basically, the way that edge boosting works is that whenever you touch a platform, the game tries to slow you down from what would be a boost attack speed, which is this, to a normal running speed and eventually a stop. However, if you actually move away from this platform before it's finished slowing you down, it'll just continue you moving in that direction. So while usually your movement would involve selecting a platform and flying towards it, you can fly away from a platform instead. And this means you can get to some areas which they didn't intend for you to go to. So the 2 edge boosts I've done in this level, for example, have taken away from collecting the first power up in the run, and I'll just do this boss fight quickly first before I finish off my explanation, because this one's a really awkward boss fight. Alright, there we go. So it takes you from getting a gun power up, which would destroy those spike balls which are in your way, and the second one skips an auto-scrolling section along the area above. So overall, those alone in this level save a good couple of minutes. Not couple of minutes, good minute and a bit. I was exaggerating there. But that's probably the main trick that you'll see throughout this run, done in various ways to skip a decent amount of content. Well, it speeds up a lot of levels by skipping a lot of the annoying stuff. Chapter 3. There's not a lot to this level, really. Because there was a theoretical thing I came up with which would have been able to skip most of this level. And the way that would have worked is that there is a platform which you have to go to. Over there, can you see it in the background? This one here. And it goes along there. You can actually reach that with an edge boost, which is right at the end of the level. The problem is that you need to fly back to the beginning part of the level to destroy a ship that's attacking your ship. And this ship does not spawn until after you've collected these oil containers at the end of this level. And which is a shame, actually, because that would have taken this level from a 3-minute level to about a minute. But unfortunately, the trigger's not activated until you've got these. If anyone ever has any questions, just put them on in the chat, because I've got the chat open, so I'll be able to see what there is and I'll be able to answer it for you. But one thing I've noticed a lot of you talking about is the differences in versions, and it links to the interesting development that I mentioned before. The game has 3 different versions. This version, which is the one I'm playing, which is on the Wii, it has a Wii U release, which this game was actually bundled as a freebie with. The Wii version never got an official release, except as a first print bonus with the Wii version, with Wii U version even. And then you have the 3DS version, which is actually the Wii U version of the port of the 3DS version, and it's not very good. The game was originally developed for the Wii, and then it wouldn't get published unless the Wii U game was a 3DS version was made, and then they took so long making it, the publisher, that the Wii was dead and the Wii U was out, so they ported the 3DS version of Wii U, and it's terrible, let's be honest. So it's a good thing that this version was actually allowed to see the light of day, because it is a really fun thing. Yeah, the game's made by Yuji Naka, which is an interesting thing to note. But yeah, how long did it take to learn this? The game actually isn't that difficult to learn off the bat. You can probably get a sub 130 time pretty easily, because you can get away with a lot of mistakes. And the boss fights are probably the bit where you're going to lose a lot of the time, because they are a bit glitchy in this version, I will admit, for various reasons which you'll soon get to see. A mix of the camera messing up and things like that. But it's still pretty good. It's when you get to sort of around a sub 120 to sub 115 time that it starts to get more challenging and more difficult to optimize, which I'm at a 111 now, and I feel like a quicker time is possible, even up to sub 110, which is the ultimate goal. Oh, sorry, that's my Discord sound effects. I don't have the chance to turn them off, as you can see, so apologies for that. Hopefully, I don't think it'll go up that much. I should have checked that first. Now this bit is one of the bits that's very cycle orientated, almost cruelly so, which there's a couple of instances of this in the run. Basically, you want to have the least amount of time where these ships are being destroyed, because for some reason the camera locks on to the ship that's being destroyed. And it makes it very difficult to actually move to where you want to while this destruction animation is taking place. You can see there with that one, I wasn't able to turn the camera until the ship was destroyed. So you want to sort of keep it locked on, like keep it in a way that it either destroys itself very quickly or it's locked on in a way that allows you to move to the next ship, so you waste the least amount of time moving in between ships. I don't know why they locked the camera there, but yeah. The game is very high paced, Viad. It is really fun as well, but it is very fast paced. You don't get a lot of downtime. Like the first bit of downtime, which would be a perfect time if there's a donation, is just after this boss fight. And I think this boss fight lets people see why I made the Shadow of the Colossus comparison. But you could also see where the camera is not that good either. Yeah, Medicine. The reason why Yuji Naka was mentioning that is he developed the game, but he only developed the Wii version. It was actually a different development team that made the Wii U and 3DS versions, which, as I mentioned, aren't that great. But it's a really fun game, and I'm glad it actually got released. I thought it was dead because we hadn't heard anything from like 2012. But yeah, now we're into a different area with this now. Chapter 6 is more like a sand-based area. And you're onto the chapter that's probably the least fun one to play casually. This level in a casual environment is really not that fun. I didn't enjoy this level at all casually, because the problem with this level is that the aim of it's mainly the end of the level actually. You have to destroy these sandstorm generators, and there's no map in the Wii version, unlike the Wii U and 3DS versions. So you can't actually tell where these sandstorm generators are, which you have to destroy. But at the same time, you've also got the sand making it very hard to see where you need to go. And you've got the fact that they're very awkwardly shaped in a way that you can boost towards one of them and... yeah. You can boost towards them and just not actually destroy them. It's really stupid, because the actual shape of it will stop you being able to hit it. Which is this section here, and you'll see why now. Your viewpoint becomes drastically reduced. They're not that bad once you know where you need to go, which is why it's more fun as a speedrun than it is casually, but it's still one of my least favourite chapters in the run. There's also not a lot that's very interesting in a speedrunning sense, because it's more just A to B as quick as possible, instead of like say, oh, you can do this to skip this or whatever. So I'm using the booth boots here, which I should actually probably explain the power-ups. I don't think I've explained them yet. There's 3 power-ups you can get in the run. There's in the game actually, never mind the run. There's the boost boot, which is probably the most useful one, because you can use it to boost along large gaps. Some of them allowing you to do things which edge boosting normally wouldn't allow. You've got the lock-on gear, which is the worst one, because that's also mapped to the same button as your boost attack. And if you decide to start flying when you're locked onto something, you will fly towards them and there's no way to stop this flight towards them, so it can be really awkward. And then you have the gun, which, yeah, I'll actually pick up in a moment. It's basically just a gun, and it works as you'd expect. Also map to the A button though. Sometimes I think the game would benefit with more buttons, but it works as it is. It's useful in some scenarios when you've got a load of enemies that you need to kill, but otherwise the gun's very superfluous. I mean, it works here as well, because you needed to destroy these. There's also one trick which I've never been able to actually explain why it works. I don't understand why it works, but it just happens sometimes, and I don't know how to replicate it. On those octopuses, even though there's no straight edge on them, unlike what you need for an edge boost, either vertically or horizontally, you can still get a boost off them for that. And it'll save like a second if you get the boost, because you won't have to wait for it to fly up in the air, which is pretty nice. Another thing I should explain, since this bit's pretty plain now, is the mini boss fights. You notice the one in chapter 2, which is the worst one in the entire run, due to the boss's movement and the actual area you're in being very compact and full of lots of things that get in the way of you actually trying to select it and get a quick kill. But basically, these mini bosses can be killed very quickly if you get lucky with the way they move. You have to just hit them a couple of times. It's a reason why the second one can actually be killed really quickly, as can the fourth, but this first and third ones are awkward with their movement, which is why they're not so good. Now, I did mention this just before I started the run, but this is a run where I was just able to find a new skip, which saves a good 30 seconds in a speedrun. And I'll point it out when I get to it, because it's actually like a use of edge boosting that's done differently to any of the other edge boost skips that have been in the game so far, and actually are in the run at all. This one works using the gravitons, which are the glowing green things that you see with a counter in the corner and you can sometimes see floating around the levels. Well, they're yellow in the levels, so them things there, which I just flew towards. Basically, instead of doing this fight that you can see here, that spawns there, what you need to do is you need to fly to this section here, look straight up, fly towards it, and then boost like that, and then you're actually able to select the bottom of that island and come right up here, and that's a very free, very easy 30-second skip, at least 30 seconds plus. It saves so much time considering how easy it is. And considering all the gravitons that are there, even if, say, you messed that up, which I've not done yet, thankfully, and I'm glad I didn't mess it up here, actually, you will always save that 30 seconds. Now, this level, there's another skip which I think is possible in this level, but I've never been able to fully work out how to do. This collectathon here is to create some bombs, because the idea of this, if you're trying to destroy this hangar where some ships are for the robot spaces, and that's what you can do over here. You can actually fly over to here straight away, but the problem is, as soon as you get halfway along that hang pipe, it will stop you like, oh yeah, you can't go here yet, we need to create the bombs first, and it'll send you right back. So, but as far as I'm aware, the triggers for these bombs to be placed is actually still there. before you actually get into this level. Like before you get to this area after collecting the bombs. So you should be able to get to it without actually having to create the bombs in the first place. So in theory that's how it would work, but yeah. I've not been able to get past this trigger because it seems to just go infinitely up in the air and infinitely downwards as well. But if there's a way to skip it, then I would love to find out. And yeah, I've been keeping my own splits here on my side, and that just saved 30 seconds because it's the first time I've been able to actually do it in a run. Which isn't bad, you know. I can take it, I guess. Now, this level, Chapter 9, there's not much in terms of skips, but it's pretty... It's awkward because of the end bit of the level, I'd say. Like, right at the end of this level is a fight you have to do. And to get the most optimal cycles on it is really difficult because there's so many of them. You have to try and get 2 cycles on it to otherwise you lose about 10 seconds, which is a decent amount to lose. I'm taking that for safety, actually. That's just a safety thing because actually I could have got it down here, but whatever. Just in case I mess up this fight, because I've not actually explained the different forms of Rodea. There's a lot going on in this run, which I feel like I'm rambling a bit, and I apologise if I am, but I'm just trying to explain everything that's going on in this run. There's 3 different forms of Rodea. There's the one that I am now. The one that you start with has them with white hair, and there is a one lower form which you never want to get into because it's super slow. Basically, you start on his middle form, and yeah, I should be able to get this now. His middle form means you can. It's not any slower than this form which he's in at the moment, which is the green haired one. Super Saiyan mode, as I've come to call it. The difference between this mode and the white hair one is, as well as being able to take an extra hit before going into the super slow mode, you also do slightly more damage, which means some enemies take less hits, which of course is advantageous. So even though you've got transformation, which takes about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, it's still quicker overall to just get this extra thing and take those 2 seconds. Excuse me, take those 2 seconds. So you've got this fight now, which is not very good and it's very glitchy. And yeah, you can see how bad the camera can be at times now. Basically, you've got to hit the 4 points on his back. I feel there's no way to do it in 1 cycle, even though it looks possible, because it stops you hitting them after 2. I'd like to think there is a way to get a 1 cycle on this fight, but I've never been able to discover it if there is. Because it just instantly starts this cutscene and then you can't actually select them after that point. Which is a shame, so you have to wait for him to burrow underground and then do that. But there's not much more to this boss, so if there are any more donations, then you can read them now. So, because for about another minute, there's a bit of downtime. Excuse me. But yeah, this fight's not too bad, to be fair, as long as you get past the... It's hitting him on his head that's the hardest part of the fight. Because you can clip behind his head, you can clip inside of his head, you can clip inside of his body, you can just clip inside of this boss and get stuck there and be pulled out, and it's not... it's just not a good boss. Some of the bosses are a bit glitchy, to be honest. But, you know, you have to just work around it.
Do I have time to read some donations?
Yeah, you can read one now, yeah.
Okay, we only got a couple. That's your key. Donate $4.49, saying bidding to make the total even. And someone then donated Das Can't Count, which I assume is him. Donated $5.10 with no comment. But the total isn't even anyway. The total is 285.06 unless something isn't coming up. So thanks, Dash Yorkie.
Thanks, even though it doesn't make it even in the end. But yeah, so now we're on to chapter 11, which is a pretty bog standard level. There's not much exciting to this. Basically, you've just got to fly through the level, and then you've got this fighting section at the end. So it's at this point that you get to see some other characters talking to you through the level, and because at this point in the story, Eon's actually being captured. That's the name of the girl who is flying with you, who doesn't shut up very often. But part of the reason for that is just simply due to the fact that you are going so fast that you're not even letting her cycle through a full dialogue before she's starting the next bit of dialogue. Because she's set to say certain things at certain times, but you're not letting her finish what she's saying, so she starts going into something else, so she doesn't end up shutting up. But now she's being captured, so you get a couple of different people coming through now. There's just a little bit of dialogue. They're quite interesting to be there, and it's nice that they're there, but it can get a bit grating when you've played it as much. But you know, it's not too bad overall. Line demo, I will just correct you there. The 3DS version is actually better than the Wii U version, because I've actually played all three versions, and I actually own all three versions. That's the worst bit. And the 3DS version is bad, the Wii U version's worse, and this is a good version, basically. Alright, so there's a very interesting little bit of optimization in this level, which I feel bad to admit, but I came up with, or like I did it by accident a couple of months ago. Never actually clicked with me that it saved time until about a couple of days ago, when Demolition1414, who's in the chat at the moment, actually pointed out to me, because he runs a Wii U version for some strange reason, because he has no taste. And he did it in the Wii U version, and it works in the Wii all the same. And basically, what you do is, it works with how, basically it's similar to how Chapter 8, how I mentioned how you can't skip collecting all those items because the game stops you. The game actually saves you time by stopping you, saving more time with this. Because Eon is in one of these containers here, and you're trying to save her. She's always in the same container, thankfully. With the amount of containers that there are, if this was RNG, then I would just be crying so much. But thankfully, she's always in this furthest container every time. But the island where you have to collect the key card to open up her container is directly below the islands where you actually get the key card. The key card, if I let myself speak properly and don't lose my trail of thought, the key card is in this enemy here, and that's directly below the island which you need to collect it on. But instead of going along those fish there, if you turn around, use the boost boots to boost off there, the old man will stop you and bring you right back to here. In which case you just go back to the war point. It's quicker than going along the fish by a couple of seconds. Which, you know, isn't bad. And then you just fly along here. It's a shame because you should actually be able to reach that with a well-timed boost. But it doesn't let you get all the way up. Which is a shame. Blink and you'll miss this fight, mind. Now you see him, now you don't. He moves a bit similarly to the way that the first mini-boss moves, which there's 4 mini-boss robots. There's R1, R2, R3 and R4. And you're R0. Some very original names. They've got actual proper names as well, but I can't remember them. So, that's who they've become to me. And now you get to see slow Rodea because I'm bad. But because he's in such an open area, it's really good to... It's really easy to just spam attacks against him. And it's just like, voila, you're done because you can just continuously spam attacks before he can actually do anything. So... This chapter is actually really short because of that fight. And it's a weird place to have the fight at the start of the chapter instead of the end, but... There's one other little optimization in this chapter. You can collect these boots and hit the ground there, and it won't actually do the transformation, so you save 2 seconds from that. It's a very minor thing, and it's the only point in the run where you can actually do that, because there's no other point where you can take damage right after collecting a power-up, which is a shame because it's a pretty cool little thing there. But yeah, this wasn't the greatest chapter because of that mistake at the start. And this chapter actually has the hardest edge boost in the run, in my opinion. Well, I say that, but there's not exactly another runner who I can compare their opinion to, so, you know. That's how it goes. It is the hardest, my decision. Oh, hello. This hasn't happened before. Story. At this point, you've just saved Eon in chapter 13. That's why you were fighting that boss there at the beginning of chapter 13. So you've saved him, and now you are actually just going back on your mission to destroy these towers so that the invading robots from the ground below won't invade your lovely Sky Kingdom. Okay, I got it. That actual edge boost saves quite a lot of time, because can you see that in the top corner? You're supposed to select 3 key cards to activate a warp point, which will take you to this island, but that edge boost will take you there. The problem is there's not actually a proper platform to be boosting off of, so you just sort of end up being there. So it's very difficult, but thanks to that platform sticking out, you can get it pretty consistently, but it's still not very easy. Because sometimes the camera tries to focus you, as well as this is another reason why the camera is not very good. You can move the camera yourself, but the camera also tries to focus on different things that are going on around the level. And one of the things it can do is try and focus onto a certain platform. So if it doesn't want you going to a certain platform, or it feels like you're moving away from a platform, and it will move the camera to that platform, even if you're actually in reach of a different platform, which can happen sometimes on that edge boost. You can be within reach, and the pointer will change, and then the camera will suddenly switch back, so you can't actually fly there. Oh, and the wind. Wind sucks. I don't know why they put wind in this game. I mean, I know you fly, and you fly in the air, and air has wind, but wind was a bad idea. Because basically, you touch the ground while the wind's blowing, and you have this sort of like Tony Hawk grind bar style thing come up on the screen, and you have to balance that out until the wind stops, and it's just slow. And here's another boss fight that's also really bad. Can I... Okay, I got early hit on the head, but basically, you've got to try and get 2 cycles on this. I can see that medicine, but the wind only actually affects you when you're on the ground. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Whatever. That's new. Right, okay, so my 2 cycle may end up being messed up a little bit here. I mean, I got the 4 hits there, but that means that the bird's in a different position. So it can make it a bit awkward for when he starts to flap his wings. Because when the bird has 2 points on each of its wings that are on the underside, and if the bird's flapping its wings, it's basically impossible to get these points without getting hit. And you can't get hit otherwise. You know, like that basically. So I have to hit this, and then I have to boost. I'm not going to get it in time, am I? No, I'm not. Right, there we go. I just got away with that. That wasn't a great fight. If there's time for donation, you've got time for that now as well. Usually after the boss...
I was gonna ask that.
Oh, convenient.
Am I right doing it right now?
Yeah, you can do it now.
Okay. We got 2 donations. One from a Freety, who donated $4.94 saying, "Yay, speedruns!" And Emericus T donated $50 saying,
Ooh.
"Hello everyone, please take this. I hope it goes towards making ESA better for everyone." Smiley face. Good luck and have fun.
Smiley face.
Thanks guys.
Yeah, thanks for that. Alright, so I was basically... Because the only bit of I was about to say, the only bit of downtime you get in the run is just after a boss fight. And in chapter 21. Yeah, I guess I can explain categories. I've only properly done runs of any percent. I've not properly routed any of the other categories. There's only really 3 categories you can even do with this game. There is any percent, which is this category, which is just beating the game quickly. There's all medals, which is collecting every medal in the game. There's 5 bronze medals, 3 silver medals, and 1 gold medal in every non-boss level. So in every level apart from 5, 10, 15, 20, 24 and 25, there is a medal. There's 9 medals to collect in each, which seems like a very weird number, but you know. And these are in various places throughout the level, including behind doors, which require a certain amount of gravitons collected to be able to open, and a couple of other just scattered around basically. And you've just got to collect these. And the reason why because the other category is 100%. And while medals are the only collectible, 100% also includes all S ranks. Which there's a very specific reason why I didn't want to just have a normal 100% category and an any percent and that's it. Because 100%ing this game is really not that fun. Because I've not even done it yet, and I've put so many hours into this game. because 100% requires all S ranks, including on graviton collection. This requires getting pretty much max combo possible throughout the entire level from destroying enemies. As you get more gravitons, the more enemies you destroy in a chain, and you've got to collect basically every graviton in a level, which means you basically have to play every level twice to get all the S ranks. And I'm telling you now, that's not my idea of fun, because collecting all the gravitons in a level takes like 10 minutes on its own. And then you've got to collect the medals as well, and then you've got to beat the game as well. It's just not what I have in mind as fun. But yeah, I should probably also explain now the area that we're in now. It's more of a snowy area, and it also brings into it the hardest mini-boss in it in the next chapter. No, this chapter. And this mini-boss is one of the biggest RNG time losses in the run, because the way that she moves is she warps around, and basically if you boost attack around the place, there's a chance that she tries to warp into a place as far away from where you are when she starts to warp. And I see this is a problem with the wind. I got stuck on the ground for 1 second, had to wait. Anyway, if you boost attack when she starts warping and then you go to the other side, there's a chance that she'll be in a position near you to hit her without having to wait for her to stop warping about. But that's not exactly very common either, that can happen. So if you don't get any early hits on each of these boss fights, which there are 2 of with this enemy, then you lose 20 seconds per fight, which is 40 seconds in a run, which is a decent amount of time to be losing if you think about it, which is slightly annoying, but you know. Okay, so this is actually an interesting story. Which is the best version to run the game? There's no actual differences in the game, but the reason why the Japanese version is quicker, even if you play the English version with the Japanese text and Japanese audio, it's because of basically a flaw that NIS America, the Western publishers of the game, oh dear. I messed up there. I didn't realise I was not in the strongest form, so I couldn't get the maximum amount of attacks on him at once, so I lost even more time on that fight there. Basically, there was a programming error in the English version, which adds because there's a multiplayer mode in the Wii version as well. This version is exclusive to the Wii version, and what it adds is the ability to play with up to 4 players, split screen, around some specially made levels. But the problem here is that those unlockables are shared between all files, but these messages telling you you've unlocked multiplayer levels and multiplayer characters will still play despite the fact that you've already unlocked them on a different file. And this is even if you've completed a game on that same file. It just will play regardless, so each text box wastes about a second, and there are about 15 to 20 text boxes, I've not counted the full amount, that are extra because of this multiplayer stuff appearing every time you play the game, which costs you about 20 seconds. So basically NISA messed up releasing the game in English, and that now happens every time and there's nothing you can do about it. They also caused it so that they removed the brilliant ending song at the credits, and the game crashes after you beat the final boss. But let's ignore those little details, shall we? Okay, so we've got another edge boost skip here, which skips a block puzzle, which used to be the bane of me playing this game before we discovered we could actually skip both of the block puzzles. Because there's one here and there's one in chapter 23. And there's a very particular reason why I hate them. And it's because you have to move them with boost attacks, and they'll move in whatever area they want. But so that one we skip with an edge boost. But the other one we skip in a very hilarious way, which you'll get to see when we get to that point in the run. Anyway, so this chapter actually has a really funny out of bounds, which, if I have time, I may ask if I can show it off. So I'll possibly try and do that after this run, if I've got time. It's a very big oversight in the development that allows you to go out of bounds. You can actually go inside of this island that I'm flying over right now. It doesn't have any speedrunning advantage, even though you can get into the final room. For a similar reason to what I mentioned with chapter 3, you just trigger to finish the level isn't loaded until you do something else, which is slightly annoying. Anyway, so chapter 19 is, I think, a really fun chapter because it's got a couple of fun, cool looking, even if they save basically no time at all, and some really fun little tricks in this level. It's actually probably one of my favourites to do in a run, and one of them comes quite soon. You've got to destroy these points on a wall, and these points are just to activate a warp point to get to the next area. You can't edge boost to the next area, unfortunately, it's too far away. But you can actually get into the warp point before the cutscene and then be warping while the cutscene's playing, and it just looks really cool. It basically saves like half a second, but it looks so cool to do. Oh man, I was so close, like a couple of frames off. But because you get to see, like, from a distance what happens when you go into one of those catapults, as I call them. I don't know what their proper name is. But yeah, also they put all these enemies here to stop you actually boosting onto that, but you can get onto there anyway without having to kill any of them. So it's a bit redundant that they're there. I did that in a casual playthrough as well, because it's that easy to do. As long as you get to the right area, you can just boost without having to kill any of those enemies. You can do that somewhere else as well with a warp point. Like, they put enemies around them, but you can just get into it anywhere. In fact, leaving gaping holes is sort of a bit of a theme. So, yeah. So here's another boss fight here. Okay, I got a bit of an early hit there. It doesn't save that much time though, that one in comparison. I need to try that quickly before it actually slows me down. Okay, that was an alright fight, to be fair. So, now we're going into a boss fight that used to be the bane of my existence until I found a very consistent strat for it. Because it is really buggy, and I don't like it at all. You can basically clip into this boss, in his arms, take damage, into his head, into his mouth. It just isn't very good. It just moves awkwardly, and you can clip into it everywhere, and it can mess you up. I don't know what's the best way to describe it, to be honest. It's just not very good. It can just like swing its arm, for example, and you can fly into those yellow bits which give you damage without you even trying. Like that there, actually. Funnily enough. And that pretty much takes me back to the start of the fight. And that's why I take these safety tail upgrades in this fight. Because no way would I try and risk this fight without them. Because of the way it works. Okay, so let's see if we can get this time. Oh, camera. Okay, this isn't a good fight at the moment, at all. But, yeah, you can see why I don't like this fight. It used to kill so many runs. And it used to actually mainly be on the final hit instead of these first two hits. But these first two hits aren't very good either. Oh dear. I fear I'm going to get hit again. Yeah, I am. Oh dear, I'm losing a lot of time here. The chokes are on. Right, because... So... Hopefully... Now I won't mess it up. Right, there we go. Now this third hit... You can't actually hit his head until he's done this little thing. Because you're supposed to knock this point down onto his head. And for the longest point, I didn't know how to get this on the first cycle, because it's basically impossible to find where find a rock which would actually make this work on. But you can there's actually this rock here, which you can just stand on, and that means you'll fly up with the rock when he hits his ground on this cutscene, and that means you can get the first cycle on this. And it was such a relief to find this, because otherwise you thought I've had to be stood on a rock before the cutscene, but I didn't find a solid rock which you could actually stand on, so you had to just get really lucky with where you were. Okay, so that was a little bit annoying, that fight. But now you've got the most fun thing ever, a 4-minute auto-scroller that's unskippable. So if there are any donations, you can go with that now. So, because there's not going to be much happening for the next little bit of the run.
I've got one donation.
You go with it.
It's from Lost Viking. He donated $30, and he says, "A Lamau." Thanks,
Lamau,
for the $30 donation.
I mean, I could mention the only optimization that we have for this level is basically to destroy as fewer enemies as possible in this, because for every enemy, and don't take any damage, but for every enemy that you destroy, it adds a little bit of time to this scoreboard that comes up after this auto-scroller. I don't know why there's a scoreboard, but it tells you how many of the enemies that you killed in this auto-scroller, what percentage you destroyed, and how many gravitons you collected. And the more you destroy, the longer the screen takes. So basically you just gotta kill as few as possible, and I only killed 2 waves, which ended up being about 21 out of 193, I think it is. But for... yeah. For a lot of it, it's just, you can keep to the bottom of the screen and they won't hit you at all. So I've not even got the controller around my wrist at the moment. I've not even got a hold of it at the moment, actually. There's just not a lot interesting. So if there are any more questions about the game, then there's a couple of minutes before the most intensive part of the run comes about. So just hit me with them. I mean, these enemies here, they're the only ones you actually have to focus on when they're attacking. And my movement just stopped there for some reason. Because they actually lock onto you, so you just have to move around the screen. So if you stood in one place, then they would hit you. So you just have to move around. And then you can stop for a bit. I've been dropping frames. I've not been dropping frames here. Oh, actually, that's a point. While we're in this Autoscroller, there is one theoretical time. This is one of the two ways of destroy, by the way. I just interrupted my whole trail of thought there. There is one theoretical skip which could save multiple minutes if fully implemented, but the way it has to be implemented is really weird. And it links to a different out of bounds that I found before I even found the edge boosting. It's in chapter 13. Do you remember where the spike balls were at the end of that chapter? You can actually get past them with the boost boots by taking one bit of damage and then damage boosting through them. It's not the easiest thing to do, but as long as you get past, you can actually boost out of bounds and outside, and from there you can get access to one of the metal doors, which are the door that I mentioned with the graviton boundaries, and go into them and collect the medals from them. And the interesting thing about this, though, is that what it does after you've collected, it takes you into the 2D section, because when you go through one of these doors, you've got this 2D section where you've got to collect the medal. And after you've collected the medal, you are warped back to where the door originally was. So, in theory, if you got out of bounds, found one of these 2D metal sections, went out the door that's in this metal section, and this door was further ahead of the level to where you are, then you'd actually be able to actually save a bit of time by warping forwards in the level, all through using these metal doors that you wouldn't normally be able to have access to. But the problem with this, which is why it's not been tested yet, is you need to go through every level when you can collect medals, go through them, find out where these 2D metal sections are in the normal level, because instead of having them in their own separate thing, they are actually within the 3D map, and then the camera warps to a 2D setting when you go inside of them. So you have to find where they are on the map, and after you've found out where they are, you have to work out if it's possible to get to them. Once you've worked that out, you then need to actually get to them and then work out if it saves time and where it actually takes you to after you've collected the medal, and whether it'll actually be worth doing, whether it saves time, etc, etc. So there's a lot to test with 23 levels, basically going to every out of bounds and boosting into nothingness and hoping you can somehow see a medal. So it's something to test, but because of what's because of what's required to work out where these medals actually are, I don't want to say a lot of work, because that makes me sound like I'm not bothered by it, because I do want to find it out, but it is basically have a punt and hope for the best. Boost around to nothingness, die a lot, and hope that somehow you find a medal just floating in the middle of nowhere, out of bounds, and this being attached to a 2D section of the level that you shouldn't be able to access. Now there is one edge boost in this chapter actually which I don't go for, It's you can boost off these and not have to do this fight, but the only way you can get the actual height that you need is by doing it off the level, and it doesn't work out very well when I've tried it like that. Okay, then that was good. That section's actually really awkward. Yeah, demolition sucks. Just don't listen to him. OBOP. Yeah, that works. We're actually getting close to the end of the run now, because the chapter we're in is one of the last normal chapters in the run. The chapter 23, the final normal chapter in the actual run. And then you've got 2 boss fight levels. The first one, pretty easy. Second one is also not that bad until you get to the final hit. And I'll explain that when I get to it, because there's a particular reason for why. And it's is probably the only downside to running this game. Actually, the final boss, because of this one particular thing with it. Now what I'm doing here is I'm trying to skip having to defeat all these enemies and not doing it very well. You can get to this war point without having to destroy all of these, but it's very precise, basically. There we go. It was a little slow, but we got there. And that spoke too soon. I was gonna, because that section's really awkward as well, because you have to boost along the top of those platforms. See, you can't actually see me right now, but I'm actually, since you're only playing with one hand, because you only use the Wii remote, I'm sort of like doing actions to what's going on, but it doesn't really work when it's only you. Only you can see it. Also, what you saw before can happen sometimes. Sometimes you can just be randomly thrown off, boosting along a graviton chain. It's a glitch which I don't know why it happens, it just does. I'm guessing it has something to do with where Rodea's position is, and if he's not boosting in the correct way, I don't know. Now this is the second block puzzle, and what you have to do is you have to use those blocks to hit a button that's behind the electric. Or you can just go like this and boost through it. Now it's a shame I didn't get that first time, but you know. Oh damn, I was slow with that. But yeah, it's such a stupid skip. It should not be a thing. But there's actually these small gaps between each bit of electric, which the intention is for you to block it with that block puzzle. But it's actually just really frustrating. And then of course you can just sort of boost in between them and be like, voila, there we go. And that's actually the final normal level in the run. Now you have 2 boss fights, which if there's another donation, then we can read it now, because this fight is basically just boost around him into circles for 2 minutes and then hit him when it's actually a convenient time. So there's not a lot to this fight, because his second attack there, which is the one he used there, it just works like the wind I mentioned before, and the third attack here is just another one where you boost around in circles, but you make sure not to boost around too quick, otherwise the gun can loop back on you and hit you anyway, even though you are trying to avoid it. And then you just hit him after that and rinse and repeat. Oh, hello. I got stuck there. I actually don't know what I got stuck on. Because of the camera, I couldn't actually see what I got stuck on. I think I got stuck in his like, throw, I think. Hey, speedrun. What would even a speedrun of Wii music even be? I'm curious. But yeah, this fight is just a case of going round in circles. But we're almost at the end now. There's 2 bits to this fight. There's actually 2 mini-bosses here. If you count him as a mini-boss, which is not really that difficult, so I guess you can. The second mini-boss is basically like the other robots, the other R-series robots, which I've fought throughout the game so far. Except this one can create a tornado. But you can boost into... you can boost into that for some reason, into that tornado, and not have to wait for it. No, this isn't the final boss. This is the first form of the final boss. But his second form you don't fight straight away, basically. It's probably the best way to describe it. This is the other one. I'm not sure if I've got that there. I've got the quick hit. Okay, I've got it. There. You just take damage and you can boost into a tornado. And voila. And this is the final boss. It's in equal ways good and annoying. Because of the final hit, which basically the way it works is you do these hits where he shoots these tentacles out of this purple goop, and then you have to hit these. He'll then bring you inside of him to where you hit some weak points inside, and after you've hit those you will then be taken into, then you'll be thrown back out, do it again, and then for the third hit, the way that one works is you have to boost toward, well, the fourth hit actually, there's 4 hits. I'm mistaken there. You do the 3 for the inside of him, and then this one where you have to fly towards it. But the problem is that these rocks that fly towards you, which you have to use to fly towards his core, and these rocks go to you a complete RNG, and you have lasers flying towards you. So if you get bad cycles on the rocks, you can die at that point. And since this boss fight has no checkpoints, then you can lose up to 5 minutes, which can be a bit annoying. But that's why I've gave myself such a safe estimate for this run, just in case that happens. So, there's not much else to say for this fight, except for the fact that you can actually clip underneath this purple goo. It's supposed to have like a damage trigger underneath it, which you can hit, but there is possible with these tentacles can push you underneath it, It's only happened once, and it happened completely by accident. And I've never been able to replicate it. It doesn't actually save anything. You can't do anything extra when you're under there. It just looks really cool. But apart from that, it's just a case of getting through these hits. And that's the other thing, you can't skip cutscenes in boss fights. So if you're wondering why I've been skipping all these cutscenes through the entire run, and then suddenly I'm just standing there while waiting for this cutscene to play, it's because I actually can't skip it. Which is annoying. That is true. Purple goo is an underused thing. No, it does have that sort of retro vibe, so I guess it sort of works for it. It feels almost a bit like an arcade game in a way. Where it's very simplistic, and it's all like high score based. Basically, what's the quickest time you can get, what's the most gravitons you can collect, things like that. It's very much arcade style game. It feels like a game from 10 years ago, but not in a bad way, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel outdated, but it does feel old as well. That's probably the best way I can put it in words. Anyway, we're almost on to that final hit there. So, I would say to this hit, and then we've got the final hit, so it's probably good to get ready on time soon, because it'll probably be coming up in about 45 seconds, or about 5 minutes. Yeah, or about 5 minutes.
Or 5 minutes.
Yeah, a bit of a difference, but you know, it's how we roll. Okay, this is the bit which is quite. It's not very RNG based. Well, it is RNG based in the cycles, but you can adapt to a lot of them. There's just a couple of cycles you can't adapt to, and you will just die from them. Because the way the rocks and the lasers are both firing at you together, there's no way to avoid them. So, this one's a pretty nice cycle, I think. Yeah, it is. It's a nice cycle. I should be able to get this. Pretty fine. Here we go, so you're in time. Time.
Oh shit. I just realised this isn't open. Whatever. Nice.
Yeah.
The tab I needed to wasn't open. Anyway, we're a few seconds off.
Yeah, the time I got on my side was a 1:12:30, so it's about there. Not far off.
Cool.
So that is Rodea the Sky Soldier. It's very fun. It's a very good, I think a good watch as well. Very fast paced, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. If we've got a bit of time, I could quickly show off a couple of things. If that's possible.
Yeah, might as well. We've got ages, really.
Yeah.
And I've got to help set some other people up, so.
Okay then, I can quickly show some things off if you want to do that then.
Yeah.
Alright.
Feel free.
Okay then, so the first thing I'll show off an out of bounds. I can't skip the screen, so I'll just have to wait for it to show us everything of all the medals we collected and stuff like that. And then I'll show off there is quite it's a ridiculous out of bounds when you think about it. It's a one in chapter 18 that I mentioned. And I was just telling you got the multiplayer. Actually, I have done it before. I could do a two-player, a one-player, two-controller multiplayer level, which I might quickly show off as well. But I'll show off this out of bounds first. It's in this chapter, and I can actually show off how stupid the block puzzles are as well at the same time. So I'll just have to get there, which will take about a minute. So it's just a case of going through the level normally first. And thank you, Midnight. I don't think I'm adorable, but I'll take that compliment. So, First, we've just got to go through the first bit as normal, which thankfully didn't take too long. Because it comes up just after this fight section, which you remember from before. I'm actually doing this probably a bit better than my run. It's slightly annoying. My world record time is a 1:11:50, so I wasn't actually that far off my world record in that run. It's just simply the fact that I had that big time loss in 2 of the boss fights that cost me getting a world record in front of everyone. Which is slightly annoying, but there we go, that's how it is. I am the English voice actor for Rodea. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't tell that to everyone. Okay then, so we come back down to here. This is a block puzzle, which you have to do with boost attacks. So you have to boost into it like that. It'll then fly off somewhere. You then have to boost attack these things into the electric, which can sometimes block them and sometimes do that, and they're just really stupid like that. I got it eventually, but sometimes you can get some really bad luck with that. But that's not what I wanted to show. What I wanted to show is this. That's where you'd normally go, by the way. You normally go inside there, you do a couple of things instead of doing that. So you also save time on that skip from going in there. But you can see this hole here. You can go behind here, and voila, you're inside the island. That's literally it. You're inside the island itself. And there's not much you can actually do here. And unfortunately... Oh! Apparently there's a death trigger there. I've been in that area before and never noticed that death trigger. So... Okay. Fair enough. I've learned something new. Anyway, so as I was saying, you come back behind here, you're inside the island. So you just... You come around here, you can then go like this. And you can see where the room is, where the end of the level is. But you can't actually trigger the end of the level by coming in here. You can get in, but the level doesn't end, so unfortunately it's not it's not a way to save time in a run, which is a shame, but there we go. Okay then, so since we're having a little bit of time still, I'm gonna get my other Wii remote, which is almost out of battery, so...
have you finished?
If you're ready to...
Can finish off whatever you're doing, if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, you can't... it was just something quick, so... Right then. So, I'll connect my other controller and I'll quickly show off one of the multiplayer levels. Right. There we go. So... You've got these multiplayer levels here. There's 5 of them in all. I can do only do the first one on my own, but basically you can control 2 different characters at once. So I've not done this in a couple of months, mind, so it might end up turning out horribly. So let's see. The optimal thing to do is to actually boost with one character and then get the other one to boost in front of them, and then boost towards that player. I actually did grind this for a little bit, and the camera's going funny on that one. So it's quite hard to control 2 at once when you're having to do motion controls for them. I'll be honest. is actually pretty slow, so you know, not bad though. Yes, I basically raced against myself there, I guess you could say. But yeah, so that's Rodea the Sky Soldier, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. You should follow me on Twitch, because I'm going to plug myself right now, and now you can enjoy the next run, which is the Final Fantasy 13 race, which should be pretty fun, so I'll pass that back over now.